Seriously.
I was born in Lima, Peru.
Lima, Peru.
And was living in Lima, Peru until the age of 6. And
Do you remember it? Like what Peru was like?
I do, and we lived literally in the center of Lima, which is there's a lot of historic buildings, a lot of very old colonial, French-inspired, English-inspired buildings, and I remember just leaving home. My mom was a work-at-home mom, and we would go to the marketplace, and we'd walk through these fantastic old big buildings. And I remember just always liking the architecture that I just enjoyed looking at. There was very impressive looking buildings. And then I remember always I liked just looking at airplanes, and so there was always this interest of travel. So my mom would take me to the airport and take a look at things.
You would just
airplanes.
visit the airport.
Just visit the airport.
We did that as a kid too.
Did you?
You used to be able to go into the gates and watch the people taking off. And, So
for me, it was just so exciting to this idea that people get into this airplane and they just kind of take off and go somewhere else. And so my grandfather worked for the airline. So that was also a little a little storyline that I would hear, that my grandfather was a pilot. I fantasized that he was a pilot. I couldn't envision him not, but he really wasn't a pilot.
He was not a pilot.
He wasn't a pilot.
So your grandfather worked for the airport?
Yeah, he worked for United Ramp Service. And so, but he ended up living in America because he had seen The Streets of San Francisco. And
the movie?
The series, The Streets of San Francisco.
Oh, the TV show.
Yeah, the TV show from, I guess, the 60s. And, he was just dead set on living in San Francisco.
Really?
Back in the days where you could kind of pick where you wanted to live in America. It was more or less relatively affordable. You could make it work.
Right.
And so my grandmother was supportive, and so he moved to San Francisco and would send money back to his wife, my grandmother. And once he then became a citizen, he was able to bring his family members and my mom in order of age. So that's how we ended up in San Francisco. Yeah, so I grew up in Hayward, California. I went to high school there, and my parents bought a house there, and then I ended up going to UC Berkeley and did some internships at Stanford, and was there living in the East Bay for up until 2001.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so then in 2002, I started my real estate business in San Francisco, and from there is really where I gained my experience in real estate.
And so what did you study at Berkeley?
So at Berkeley, my goal was to go into the public health sector, so I focused on the sciences. And then I realized that my job, just the work schedule that that type of field required, was not something that I felt would give me the flexibility to do other more creative things that I wanted to do. And so I ended up focusing on social anthropology. And so that was really my main focus, and I really excelled at that, and just did really well at understanding prehistoric cultures and modern day culture, and really anthropology is really a collection of all the social sciences. It's just a matter of what you want to focus on. So in doing that, I was able to focus really on all the social sciences, including sociology, and just human behavior in general. And how we interact with other people and how we respond to changes in our environment.
Right.
After college, it just seemed like the thing to do was to move to San Francisco, and I just I lived in great neighborhoods in San Francisco, but there was a point where I felt that I had lived San Francisco. I felt I left. I added value to San Francisco. I did the most I could possibly do to be a valuable contributing member of the community. And I just felt like, I think it's time to be adventurous and try other places in this great country. And I felt that, America has a lot of great options, but at the time when I felt that I needed to move on, I felt like there was this odd calling, that there was, I just, I kept seeing myself, I don't know how, but I kept seeing myself in a very nice, stately home that can only be described as, a English manor house or a countryside home or a French chateau. And, I never shared that with anybody, but it was more like, and then Downton Abbey came about, and I was like, that's very interesting. And, that's kind of what I've been seeing, because as an American, I didn't grow up or live in England. I'm not familiar with those types of houses. I was always attracted to Victorian homes, but that's very different. So right around the time that I knew that San Francisco was not going to be home anymore, I started traveling to the south of France and started looking at homes that I could potentially fix up. And I looked for at least about a year and a half, and I traveled over there and saw online. I saw hundreds of houses, and I physically saw over 20 houses, and that was an adventure, because in France they don't give you the home address. You meet the real estate agent adjacent or around that neighborhood, and then he drives you to the property, and that's a formality that they have over there. So it was always kind of very adventurous to want to see a home, because you don't really know where it's at. You just see the pictures, and then you kind of find out maybe no, that's not the right community that you'd want to be in, or it's a little too remote or it's too far. So I visually was prepared to live in a place that wasn't an urban place. But, like I said, I didn't find it at that time, and my house sold. So it was like, I need a home. So then at that point, it's like, I know, I lived in the Bay Area. I went to college in the Bay Area. Lived in San Francisco 13 years. I said, I need to try something different. I need to do what most people are telling me not to do, which was don't leave San Francisco, and especially don't go to Los Angeles.
Okay, so you moved to Los Angeles.
So I moved to Los Angeles.
Right, yeah.
And I had an amazing time there. I made wonderful friends that are still my friends now. We correspond, we talk, we send each other Christmas cards. I made a lot of friends in Los Angeles in an incredibly short period of time of 3 years. My community was very nice and very accepting of my new home in Los Angeles, and they liked my ideas, and they voted me in as a neighborhood councilman. So I was a neighborhood councilman for about a year and a half in Los Angeles. The challenge I had in Los Angeles was just that I went from an urban place to a much more urbanly dense place. That I think, coming from the Bay Area, where neighborhoods are very well defined, it was a challenge, if not a struggle, to kind of find a little more of a cohesiveness of defined neighborhood. And Los Angeles is really working very hard to really develop that, so that it maintains more of a historical fabric, a neighborhood fabric.
So you were in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You were really wanting to move to the south of France.
Yes.
And you relocated to Los Angeles. These are some amazing places. I mean, they're growing rapidly, or they have a lot of history.
Yes.
How'd you find Alton?
So that was a very, very interesting way of how I approached it. So I just did a national search on Zillow, and just literally put these unrealistic parameters, like, what can I get for my money? If I sold my house in LA, but this time I better do it right, and this time I'll plan a little better, and not hope to find the right house around the time that I sell my house. So I did put a lot more effort into it. And I literally went from west to east, like state by state. I put in the parameters of what I was able to afford, the number of bedrooms that I wanted, and really what I really did that I think helped me in finding out was picking a decade of years, because a lot of these real estate sites will tell you how old you want the house to be.
Okay, sure.
So in America, we have wonderful home constructions, and a lot of them were during the turn of the century, the 20s and the 50s. And then what I started noticing is that really the Mississippi River was the dividing line of these exceptionally built homes. What eventually narrowed it down to this area was just the value in what you can possibly buy. What you can buy here was just it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. But Alton was great because it's like 45 minutes max from downtown St. Louis.
Yeah. if not much less.
Yeah. So for me, that was fantastic. So if I ever need really, a very specialized service, or if I need anything that the city of Alton doesn't have, it's really a stone's throw away. So that was something that for me was really important.
I think it's impressive that Alton made it through that search, Yeah. I mean, that says a lot about the town, that, of all the people, you were really looking for something very particular. Outside the box, that's what got you from California to the Midwest, and from Europe to the Midwest, right? And you talked a lot about the openness here. Can you talk more about that, like what you've experienced?
Yeah, so
or what it means to you.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to share was that, I came here for the real estate, and wasn't expecting the great number of friendly people. But I remember, I lived in San Francisco in the Castro district, and it's an LGBT community. But I remember when I saw online, and it's a Friday night, you want to go out and have a couple drinks or something, or hear music. And I just remember doing, after I moved in, I remember looking and seeing that there was a Bubby and Sissy's, which is a local gay bar.
Yeah.
And I just was like, this is crazy. How can there be a gay bar, again, in the middle of America, that, you just instinctively think that, they're only in big cities. Yeah. But there, yet again, Alton surprises you and provides something that a big city would provide. Right. And in a lot of ways, it was great, because it wasn't just LGBT. It was literally the heterosexual community with the LGBT community, hanging out and just dancing and having a good time. And that's even something I don't remember seeing in San Francisco. It was way more segregated than what I've experienced here.
How do you see Alton's future? Because Alton's changing too.
There is definitely a huge amount of opportunity in Alton, especially along the riverfront. Mm-hmm. And I also see that adjacent areas to Alton, like Godfrey, there's just an immense amount of opportunity for redevelopment or developing that area. Mm-hmm. And then there's a huge number of historic homes that really don't need that much. It just needs somebody that moves into it and takes care of it. And and that's something that very little goes a long ways in those types of situations. Mm-hmm. I think that our riverfront is underutilized. I think there would be a benefit to see our, bike highways, our bike trails along the river to be more integrated with the rest of the community of Alton. And I think, what would be great is if we could focus on the riverfront as a way of travel to and from different cities around here.
No, sure. Yeah.
And I think if they focused on maybe electric bikes, station bikes along that trail, where people can literally, young and old, can get on it and literally go longer distances without dealing with traffic or getting on the car. Yeah. Kind of have a different, more progressive view on how Alton can be a little more green. Yeah. Take advantage of that beautiful view. So there's as it is, I don't feel like we need to have more businesses or big industry coming in to do what we need to do. We really just need to do certain things at the right place at the right time, talk to the right people, try to get them to help us to maybe have more grants or funds. And I think a lot of that will really carry Alton to the next step of growth and development, because we don't necessarily need to have a big Tesla moving in.
Or Amazon.
Or Amazon. Yeah, and if it's close by as an option for residents, that's fantastic. Yeah. But does Alton really need something like that? I'm not fully convinced about that. I think there's so much untapped resources that are currently exist that we're not fully really having a discussion of how we can best utilize some of those resources.